Welcome to beautiful downtown Grand Forks. It is July 7th, approximately 5:30 p.m. This is the time and place for the Grand Forks Growth Fund Jobs Development Authority meeting. Move on to item 1, roll call.
Weigel.
Here.
Wasowski. Here. Berg. Here. Lenski. Here. Friedels.
Here.
Veen. President Sandy.
Here.
And Mayor Paczynski.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. We'll move on to item 1.2, which is the election of vice chair and secretary or treasurer. President Sandy.
Schwagel, who are currently the vice chair and secretary treasurer?
Ms. Wasowski currently serves as our vice chair, and Ms. Lenski serves as our as our secretary and treasurer.
Assuming they're both willing to serve, I'll make the motion that they occupy those same positions for another term.
Perfect. We have a motion.
No second.
We have a second by Ms. Berg. Further comments? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Just for the record, Mr. Veen is with us. Move on to item 2 is action items, 2.1, EDA, RLF, and flex space loan requests from Vertical Malt.
Thank you, Chairman Weigel, members of the authority. Vertical Malt, they're a primary sector certified, locally owned malting company that was established recently in 2023 out in Crookston. They've experienced some really stable and rapid growth, and are looking to expand here in the Grand Forks region. Looking to lease some space actually here in Grand Forks itself, about 20,000 square feet of it roughly for some office and production space to scale up that production that they're doing. The project specifically that they're looking to do right now is the purchasing of the equipment related to that sort of core milling system and storage equipment piece, as well as the packaging component to their business for the finished product. So the the request before the JDA tonight is a two-parter. It's $325,000 of EDA RLF gap equipment financing, as well as a just shy of $75,000, $74,892.17 flex space loan request to buy down the interest on the Alaris loan for this project. It's a just shy of $3 million project, $2.9 million project for the working capital and machinery equipment purchase for this company. Let's see, the terms for the EDR RLF loan. It's going to be a 10-year loan, 120 equal monthly installments at 4% after a 6-month deferral period, and then for the flex space piece, it'd be deferred for 66 months with the 12 equal monthly installments standard for that program. So secured in this case by subordinate mortgage and blanket UCC on existing and the to-be purchased equipment. I think as well as some personal guarantees from the principal. So I'm happy to stand for any questions. And I see we do have Adam and Mark, the lender, online for any additional questions you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Conlon. Comments, questions, motions? I'm sorry, I gotta open the public hearing first. So we'll open the public hearing on this item. Is anybody here wanting to speak on item 2.1? Anybody willing to speak on 2.1? Seeing nobody, we'll close the public hearing. We have Ms. Berg had something to say.
Oh, motion to approve.
We have a motion to approve by Ms. Berg, second by Mr. Friedolfs. Seeing no further comment, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Conlon. All right, we'll move on to item number 2.2, the Hive Management RFQ. Ms. Wasowski.
Good evening, Chair Weigel and members of the authority. My name is Haley Rosasson, and I'm here to present the results of our interview process for the RFQ related to management services for the Hive. We convened a panel of 5 members, including Mayor Paczynski, City Council Member Vice President Danny Weigel, Growth Fund Committee Member Russell Crary, City Administrator Todd Phelan, and City Finance Director Maureen Storstead. We did conduct interviews with 3 firms on June 12th. That was Catalyst Campus, Grand Sky, and UND Aerospace Foundation. Each firm was evaluated based on the criteria that was outlined in the RFQ. The interview process included a presentation by each firm summarizing their proposals along with a Q&A from the panel members. Based on the evaluations and scoring, the selection committee is recommending that Grand Sky as the most qualified firm to manage the Hive. This evening, we're requesting your concurrence with this recommendation, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Sossin. Questions, or maybe I'll open the public hearing first. We'll open the public hearing on item 2.2. Anybody here wanting to speak on item 2.2? Seeing nobody, we'll close the public hearing. Questions, comments, Mr. Sandy?
The organization that I worked for was one of the respondents to the RFP. I certainly don't stand to gain any financial benefit from us supporting Grand Sky. However, if they can't come to terms with them, I've been told perhaps they'll try negotiating with the organization that I work for. And unfortunately, even then, I don't stand to gain any financial benefit from my organization managing the Hive, but I thought I'd bring that to everyone's attention.
I motion that Mr. Sandy can vote.
I'll second.
We have a motion by Ms. Osowski, a second by Mayor Buczynski to allow President Sandy to vote on this item. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously.
I have a comment,
Yes, Mrs.
I guess,
Olson.
or something that I would like to discuss on this. Do we have any future plans of maybe selling this property in the near future? Or, I guess I would like to see us more just sell it off instead of continuing to manage it. I don't know if there'd be anybody interested in purchasing it, but it would be something I would like to discuss a little bit.
Mayor Buczynski?
Yeah, I would agree with Ms. Osowski. I think that in the timeline, we do have some EDA requirements from that, but if there is some type of deal with a lease to buy or some way to offload, I think in the future, I think that's attractive to everybody. So I think we're all interested in that. We just got to work through those terms, and I think we've got it on a good start, and then ultimately you'd like to let it go. So.
All right, with that, I move approval.
We have a motion to approve by Osowski, second by Friedels. Seeing no further comment, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Same sign, motion carries unanimously. 2.3 is expansion project at 1550 South 48th Street. Mr. Brooks.
Thank you, Chair Weigel. This item, I just connected with GE today. They've asked to have their request pulled. It's actually good news. They've gotten actually some orders for blades that'll actually fit into the space that they were thinking that they were going to have to expand. So at this time, it's being pulled. Perhaps it'll come back in the future, but it'll be a few years away. So with that, their request is to pull.
Thank you. Mr.
request.
Brooks. Mr. Sandy?
I move we postpone indefinitely.
Aye, second.
We have a motion by President Sandy to postpone indefinitely, a second by Osowski. Further comments? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously. Is there a
I move
motion to
adjournment.
adjourn by Osowski, second by Berg? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. We are adjourned. Thank you.
All right, moving right along. This is the Grand Forks City Council meeting for Monday, July 7th, a little after 5:30 PM, but that is the time and place. So please, roll call, please, Maureen.
Weigel.
Here.
Osowski. Here. Berg. Here. Lensky. Here. Friedels.
Here.
Veen.
Here.
And President Sandy.
Here.
All present. We have a quorum.
All right, item 1.3, 1.2, Pledge of Allegiance, please rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, item 1.3, mayor's announcements. We do have a few announcements. We had a fifth Monday, so we had an extra week off. So I'm gonna start with thanking the Sertoma Club. It was a little bit touch and go for the fireworks, but they ultimately got them off, and it sounds like it was a great event. I want to thank All True. I think their team has been doing great along with the state legislature, and Governor Armstrong was all out. They were all out for the June 17th groundbreaking for the All True Behavioral Health Center, which is, I think, going to double the capacity of that facility, which is great. I see he's in attendance, but June 18th, we were out for at the Grand Forks Fair. Myself and Commissioner Bierke were going to share the dunk tank, but we got rained out for about half of it. I did get in the tank for a little bit, and a couple of kids threw some balls at me. Mostly it was just my kids, but I got dunked a few times, which was great. But thanks to Commissioner Bierke for being out there that day as well. I want to thank the group with the Little Red reading bus. I was out and was a guest reader out at Lincoln Park. Just a fun event. If you still get a chance to go out, there's a number of different spots that they stop. Just really a phenomenal thing that they put on and been doing for a number of years. The big news, I see we got some people here that were at this on Friday, June 27th, was the Alture Sports Complex groundbreaking. I think a lot of work, 3-4 years worth of work and culmination into a groundbreaking. The interesting thing, and I have to note this, on my feed at the Grand Forks Herald, I got a Today in History note that came the next day. So we broke ground on June 27th. June 26, 1999, if you remember the Aurora Event Center, previously the name of the Alaris Center, had a beam fell, 180 tons of steel fell, and all construction was stopped. So it was quite the moment. They had to halt construction for a considerable period of time for a safety review can be conducted. I see we got some CE and McGuff people here, so we don't expect that to happen. But just to think about where we've come from, I read the rest of the article. That event center had 2 failed votes before the third vote was finally approved in November of 1996. At that time, it was pegged at a $43 to $49 million project and got 60% of the vote. After the architects were done with it in 1998, they came back and said the project would cost $66 million. So they went back and needed a fourth vote. That vote barely snuck by at 53% of the vote, and actually the project ended up actually costing $71 million. So you can see some of the differences if we look at where we're at today. I think we're in a great spot with the Alture Sports Complex, and just interesting the way that those dates lined up. So just wanted to mention that. And some other exciting news on Tuesday, July 1st, Colonel Timothy Monroe is handed over command of the 319th Reconnaissance Wing to Colonel Alfred Rosales. He was formerly at Holloman Air Force Base, which was down in New Mexico. I've got to know him a few different times now, and I think he's really laid back, has a laid back leadership style. If I could compare it to anything, he's kind of a player's coach, and I think that'll be a great change out there. 2 more notes. Condolences to the family of Blair Sondrel. He was a 42-year city employee for Grand Forks. He was a bus driver for that entire length of time. Really great man. Truly a professional. We're working right now out at the funeral home to get one of the city area transit buses out there just as a remembrance to him. It was a request of the family. So keep their family in your thoughts and in your prayers. And the last one, where is Chief Lorenz? We're going to give you best wishes. This is going to be his last time at a city council meeting. Hopefully it's a memorable one for you. You've been through quite a few doozies. I don't know how else to put it. So appreciate the 7 years that you put in for the city of Grand Forks. You're heading back home to Fargo. They kind of stole you from us, but once I knew you were in the competition, I think I told you better win and not make us look bad. So we're glad you were able to take that and win. We're going to have an interim chief. Brian Gates has been named as the interim chief. Then we'll go through the same process that we did with the police chief and look for a new fire chief. So with that, it's kind of a mouthful. Lastly, Chief's last day will be Friday, July 11th. So I'm sure he'll be working right to that last day. So why don't we give Chief Lorenzo a round of applause. Thank you, Chief. All right, we'll move on to item 2, awards, presentations, appointments, and proclamations. There are none. Item 3, public hearings and second reading of ordinances.
3.1 is a public hearing and determination of protest for Project 8915, District 790. It's reconstruct 30th Avenue South, South 34th Street to South 38th Street. We've received no protests on this.
Thank you. We'll open up the public hearing for item 3.1. Anybody here to speak on item 3.1? All right, seeing no one, we'll close the public hearing portion and open up to council for comments or motions. A motion for approval from Vice President Weigel, second from President Sandy. Any further comment? All right, seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously. All right, we'll move on to item 4, citizen comments as they relate to action items. Any citizen comments this evening, Ms. Lundmark?
I have no in-person comments. There were 3 electronically received comments that were included on the agenda.
Okay. All right, thank you. We'll move on to 5 action items. Administration did want to pull items 5.1, 5.5, and 5.11. Any other items that council wishes to pull for further discussion this evening?
5.9, please.
5.9, thank you. Mr. Veen, was there any other items that you'd like pulled this evening for discussion?
No, I'm fine, thank you.
All right, then we would move for approval on items 5.2, 5.3, 5.4, 5.6, 5.7, 5.8, 5.10, and that'll do it.
Motion to approve?
Motion approved for Ms. Berg. Thank you, Dana. And a second for Ms. Lunsky. There we go. The Tricia's got that one done. All right, any further comment? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously. So we got 5.1, 5.5, 5.9, and 5.11, Ms.
All right.
Dorstad.
Starting with 5.1, MOU between the City of Grand Forks and Grand Forks County for inspection services.
Mr. Phelan, please.
Mayor Buchansky, members of City Council, also have with me this evening, we're honored to have County Commissioner Terry Bierke here, and also County Planner Lane Magnuson is here per this request. So I just want to give you a quick summary. You recall this, I don't know, about a month or so ago. And so you approved this agreement subject to 2 modifications. One of the modifications were that we, the city, would essentially recommend a certificate of occupancy, but ultimately the Grand Forks County would final approve it. We've had some discussions administratively with Grand Forks County, and what their request is to come back here and ask you, as we originally presented, that the city of Grand Forks would grant the certificate of occupancy as we originally described. The discussion we've had with Grand Forks County is the fact of, they're not doing the inspection, so how do they sign off on something when they don't have firsthand knowledge? In addition, in our support of the county and trying to be a really great partner in all these various services, they don't have any inspection services. The consulting firm that they were working with, the person's no longer there. And in a lot of cases, there's nobody coming out of the locker room to fill the position. So they came to the city to see if we could partner. So that's really the why we got here at this point. I know one of the questions that Council President Sandy had, well, what's our liability? And so maybe the city administration is recommending you approve the change so that the city would grant the certificate of occupancy like we did originally. With the caveat, I'd ask Mr. Gossett just to let you know what our liabilities are and what our responsibilities that we're taking.
Sure. Just in reviewing matter, there was a case out in Fargo where a building inspector inspected a home, and the home was ultimately sold by the party that actually built it. And then thereafter, the house started to, I don't know if crumble is the right word, but there were some problems with the house that was discovered afterwards, and the inspected, and it was determined that there were a number of violations of the Fargo City Building Code at that time. This was a case several years ago. The city of Fargo was sued, and they had liability to a little over $100,000. Part of the analysis of that case was what was called the public duty exception. A lot of jurisdictions, other states had that immunity. North Dakota didn't have it by statute, and the North Dakota Supreme Court determined that they weren't going to adopt that by judicial fiat. They thought it would better serve that the legislature adopted that. In fact, as a direct result of that Fargo case, the North Dakota legislature did, in fact, adopt what's called the public immunity, public duty immunity. And it relates to a variety of things, including inspecting and improving matters with respect to whether it complies with any law or regulation affecting health or public safety, which is what the certificate of occupancy are for. And again, the legislative history behind this legislation was that, yes, we're doing it because of that Fargo case. There is an exception if there is what's called the special relationship. There's a number of things that have to be complied with in order to fit within the special relationship to avoid the public duty doctrine, one of which is a direct contact between the political subdivision and the party getting the inspection, some promises or some actions by the political subdivision, things like that. And I've actually been involved in a case where this was litigated after the statute was adopted. It dealt with a septic system failing after an inspection proved or said that the septic system was fine. It collapsed shortly thereafter, and we were able to avoid liability by using this public duty immunity. So again, the statute's there to provide the immunity. There's a small exception, and I think with sufficient language in the certificate of occupancy, we can minimize the liability risk, particularly given the way the statute was adopted and the reasoning behind why the statute was adopted to respond to a very similar set of circumstances as far as issuing certificates of occupancy.
One additional item I should note is that thanks to Mr. Baseflug and his Building Safety Department for wanting to step in and willing to do this. I want to also highlight, within the city of Grand Forks, obviously, we do the inspections. We do it within our extraterritorial area. So this is the area outside of that area. And as we well know, and to exclude cities. So as you can about imagine, most of the building in Grand Forks County either occurs most of it occurs in the city of Grand Forks, some of it in the ET, cities around Grand Forks County. So what we're talking for is not a lot of inspections either. So with that discussion, we are recommending that we do modify it back to the city taking responsibility over the certificate of occupancy. And Mr. Bierke and Mr. Magnuson are here for any questions. They're willing to step up to answer any questions you may have.
Sounds good. Any questions for Mr. Magnuson or Mr. Bierke? Or what would the council like to do with this matter?
I do have one comment.
Yeah, please, Mr.
So as far
Friedels.
as compensation, so the county will do, the city will do the inspections, and then we get compensated. I was reading it's for mileage, and then we collect the permit fee. The city collects the permit fees.
We do, yeah.
Okay.
Before Council or Mayor Brzezinski and Council Member Friedel, the agreement we were proposing originally would be an hourly rate, but in lieu of that, what we decided to do is just a mileage rate plus the inspection fee, similar to what we do with, whether it's in the city or inside of our ET, we just extend that out to the county.
Ms. Berg.
So the indemnity clause, would that also apply for if county were to come after the city for a failure?
You're saying if there was if the county was...
Like if the county would come after the city, so to say, just as the litigation you described for the homeowners?
I think public duty immunity would apply to whoever may seek to, and I think the county would have a difficult time to demonstrate that we had some sort of special relationship with them under all the set of circumstances that they'd have to prove to meet that, particularly when they're asking us to perform this task for them.
All right, any further questions or action for council? President Sandy, please.
Mr. Phelan, with the current seemingly moratorium on construction in the county based upon the necessity for a study for a military impact zone, I'm guessing that the likelihood of the city doing any permitting anytime soon is small. And so I'll move approval with it pointed out, though, that there's a reason why they want to push all the liability on us. Thank you, Mayor.
I second.
All right, we've got a motion and a second. Any further comments?
Mayor Ken here. One quick question
Yep,
for
Mr.
Mr.
Veen, then we'll go
Gossett.
back to you, Ms. Berg. Yep, Mr. Veen, please.
Okay, for me, it's just a typical question for risk, and we are adequately taking care of any risk the city would incur. Is that right?
The statutory immunity has been adopted to provide the protection in response to that case I was explaining as far as issuing certificate of occupancy. I'd also recommend that we put in language to assure ourselves that we don't create this special relationship as well, one of which is one of the factors is there's some reliance on the party seeking the certificate of occupancy. So we'd put in language that you cannot rely upon this pursuant to the statute or something along those lines to assure ourselves that we don't fall within that special relationship exception.
So that's included already, is that what you're saying, or you would add that?
If it's not included already, we would add some language to the certificate of occupancy.
Okay, thank you.
All right, any further comments? We have a motion and a second. Oh, Ms. Berg, please.
I believe it's been said before, with Mr. Bierke coming up with some ideas to help save money between the city and the county, and so I do want to just note that and appreciate that in saving our taxpayers' money.
All right, seeing no further comment, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Magnuson and Mr. Berkey, for coming all the way down here. Appreciate it.
5.5, bid award for city projects 8848, District 365, 8849, District 620, 8966, District 621, utilities for 47th Avenue South, South 30th Street, and South 34th Street, Columbia Road to South 34th, and 45th Avenue South to 47th Avenue South.
Mr. Grasser, you had some contingencies we might have wanted to add to this, so why don't you go ahead and take it away for us?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Bochansky, members of City Council. As you may recall, this is a project, it starts to tie into establishing the utilities and paving on 47th Avenue, eventually leading into the 47th interchange. This particular project, we went ahead with the bidding process. The land in which the utilities will be on will be dedicated under the plat. We knew when we went into this thing, as we were pushing the timeline to get good bids, that we might run into a situation where the plat, may not be fully signed by the time we're dealing with the bids, which is kind of where we're finding ourselves right now. The plat's gone through all the processes. There's no sign of any problem. It's just a matter of trying to get through the paperwork and the signatures and things like that. So the plat isn't signed yet. And so it'll take a little bit of time to do that. We're also working with city attorney's office and their attorney, just maybe trying to find a short term, like a right of entry document, something that might be quicker to get us in. Having said that, what we're looking at doing to keep the project moving would be to recommend the award, but add contingent on getting property interests that we need in order to, install the pipe. So the plat will be coming. It's just simply a matter of working through the signatures.
All right. Any other questions from Mr. Grasser or comment motions from council?
Make a motion to approve with Mr. Grasser's contingencies.
Sounds good. We have a motion. Do we have a second? Motion from Vice President Weigel, second from Mr. Friedals. Any further discussion? All right, seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
5.9, Northern Plains Nitrogen update and letter of intent agreement extension.
All right, Ms. Osowski, anything further on item 5.9?
Yeah, I just have some questions about it. So we originally, well, not we, most of us, well, some of us weren't here. We signed it in 2013, this original agreement. Besides, like, where exactly are they at with this project? Do they actually own that land out there?
Mayor Bochansky and Councilmember Osowski, they do. They own a half section of land.
Okay.
Just south of today's new solid waste landfill.
Okay. I guess I'm just wondering how long we're going to just keep doing this. I mean, it's been going on for a long time now. At what point do we just kind of kick it to the side a little bit? And then also, like, can we still fulfill the things in there? I saw a lot about like the water usage and the gray water usage. Even with Agristo coming, are we still able to provide those things to them if they do build?
Mayor Bochansky and Councilmember Osowski. On the water side, we're probably better off when it has been a while, so
Right.
and so it's spanned my whole career as a city administrator. So, number one, we have more gray water than we had before. We've had growth in the city. In the meantime, we've interconnected with East Grand Forks And so we probably have now, if we were to re-examine it, we probably have enough gray water to supply their needs for the project now, which would be another benefit. The huge benefit on this project for the city of Grand Forks is not only would we get a nitrogen fertilizer plant, the region needs it, but we'd be able to monetize our wastewater reuse, or gray water, for this facility. And I think right now we'd have enough supply that they'd be able to take the whole amount. As you remember Epitome Energy, they want for their supply to use gray water too. They were more in that 200,000 to 300,000 gallons per day. So this fertilizer plant's probably more like the 6 to 7 million gallons per day. So it's quite significantly larger than that. So I think that is a question. That's why we went back to every 6 months, you got to come back here. Mm-hmm. I would say right now, they've said a lot of things like it's imminent, right? I think when Mr. Mackey was here 2 weeks ago, I do have confirmation that they are seeking a series of funding. I did get a forwarded email to demonstrate they've gone out to the market to ask for funding to finish their FEED study, which is, I think it's the acronym for Front-End Engineering Design. And so they are asking for money to do that. It is a substantial amount. I think Mr. Mackey said up to $30 million. And so I did receive the advertisement. They're out in the market trying to gather funding to do this. So I think when we come back here 6 months, you will have some certification. Is the market willing to invest in this? And do they think this is a project where we can fund it from a debt and equity perspective? You'll have some real firm feedback that we haven't had over the last several years, to be frank.
Do you know how far along they are in their fundraising efforts? Like, are they 50%, 75%, kind of where they're at?
Yeah, I think if you look at what their project is, I think Mr. Mackey said they've scaled the project back. They used to come here and say it's going to be a $3 to $3.5 billion project, which is hard to comprehend. When he was here 2 weeks ago, they're looking at more of a $2 billion project. My guess they've scaled it back just because of market risk, what people want to invest in. So I think number one, I talked about them going out to the market. The other thing, they've scaled the project back, and I suspect that came from some of their financial advisors. Right now, their financial firm's just trying to get them that initial amount of $30 million so they can finish the reviews. And then once that's complete, it'll be the bigger tranche, which will be that $2 billion investment. And they've been here before, and they've generally said, what the market wants is half of that in equity, half of that in bank financing. But before people get to that, they're going to want this final engineering study before the market's going to want to invest in this project.
Okay. So how much money between, Mr. Gosted's time, our city staff time, have we spent on this project in the past 12 years? And at what point do we just kind of wash our hands with it? I guess I'm wondering what changed between 12 years ago where they came to us and initially asked for the agreement. Now it's been 12 years and they still don't even have the funding. At what point do we not discuss this anymore?
Mayor Buczynski and Councilmember Osalski. Well, I think in the market, here's what we have. These projects, the United States has a really hard time building large industrial greenfield projects, like a fertilizer plant, like an oil refinery. There's lots of challenges. People in the market probably see other investments that would be less risky. However, in our region, I think something's going to happen in the region because we're in a prime agricultural area here in North Dakota, but we're at the end of the line for fertilizer. We are a high-priced market. Our supply is generally tenuous at times, yet we have this prime agricultural area. So we're really challenged. The other part is fertilizer comes, I think they said about half of it comes from overseas, generally from countries that sometimes aren't very friendly to the United States. So it would be in our best interest to try to domestically grow nitrogen fertilizer capacity in the United States. There was probably the most recent greenfield site was there is a smaller site in western North Dakota attached to more of a coal refining business. That's more of a urea. We did go visit back in 2013 and 14. We went to a town called Weaver, Iowa, where I believe it was it was a Middle Eastern country that was building a facility. So that's probably the last greenfield. So there was a lot of interest back in that day. So there is still interest. And so what I would say in these next 6 months, I think it'll prove it out. I think there's an urgency, a true urgency to see if this is a viable project that can move forward. In the past, in the same time period when we started ours, there was a really close opportunity for CHS to invest in a fertilizer plant in Jamestown in the Spiritwood Industrial Park that you drive by all the time. That deal fell apart because what CHS decided to do is to expand their existing capacity at existing sites. There is a real need in our area to do it, and at some point in time, it's going to happen in and around our area. And so I would just say, let's keep it alive for now, because you're going to get more information within the next 6 months.
Thank you.
President Sandy, did you have anything to add?
Yeah, to the best of my recollection, although it's been quite some time, they're also a major natural gas user, which ultimately could help us attract another line of natural gas for redundancy to our community. And nobody else is coming asking for our gray water. And so if somebody else comes along and says, hey, we want your gray water because we've got a shovel-ready project, then we'll have decisions to make. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
All right, any further comments or motions?
Motion.
Okay, we got a motion to approve from President Sandy. Was there a second over there? Second from Ms. Berg. Any further discussion? All right, seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign.
Aye.
Motion carries 6-1 with Osowski dissenting.
5.11, Ultra Sports Complex project update and approvals. You'll see several attachments, including some citizen comments that came in that have been recently attached as well.
All right, Mr. Phelan, how do you want to break this one down tonight? And I think and maybe you're going to touch on this, but I think the biggest thing is understand there's some infrastructure things that are happening, on the sports complex the way it is, and if we want to align some things and save some money and get that set up. What do you want to? Sorry, hold on one second before you start, Mr. Phelan. We'll get Mr. Weigel.
Just like last week, I just let everybody know that I am a volunteer for Red River BMX as we get to that. I am not paid anything. Pay a lot of my own time, but that's about it. So I just thought I'd throw that out there.
I motion that Mr. Wagle can partake in voting.
We have a motion from Ms. Osowski, second from Ms. Berg, to allow Mr. Weigel to vote. Any further discussion on that matter? All right, seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 6-0. You will be allowed to vote and participate, Mr. Weigel. Mr. Phelan, excuse me. Why don't you take it away and then kind of describe how you'd like to see.
Sounds
See
good.
this
If I could
progress.
just describe I think we got 5 motions here, and then I'm going to ask Adam Davidson from JLG and Oliver Finneman from McGough Construction to come up. We have 2 handouts to go over. So I know there was some confusion 2 weeks ago when I went over this. Item number 1 on the staff recommended, that's really just for information on that. And in that part, I'm discussing GMP number 1 and really the importance of number 1. I'm providing information, but more good news that we found savings of about $1 million in the aquatic package. So I wanted to highlight that. So when we come back with the final GMP, that savings will be incorporated into that. Number 2 is another informational item, and we talked about this 2 weeks ago, and Oliver will go into more detail. We attached the bid tabulation summary with all the bids and the bidders, and then Oliver is going to come up here and kind of go over his spreadsheet of where we're at. But we're about $8 million under budget than what we anticipated with GMP2, so more good news on that. But again, our plan is to bring back on July 14th COW, and then the subsequent, the succeeding city council meeting on the 21st, we bring back the final GMP at number 2. But we'll give you more information leading up to that. Number 3 is one of the things that we are seeking action for. We are seeking action that we can move forward with pre-design scope of services, programming and pre-design scope of services. That would be with JLG. It's in the amount of $46,566, and that would allow us to continue to move forward with some design work for the indoor courts, athletic training spaces, the support spaces, and some of the site infrastructure that Mr. Davidson will go over. And so that's one of the requests that we have. It is within the administration's spending authority. We have spending authority up to $50,000, but because of this is a big policy decision, we wanted you to make the approval for us to move forward with this initial step to look at more specifics regarding that expansion. So wanted to go over that. Oliver's going to come up and let you know where we're at with the bid. I just wanted to note also that Oliver's going to say right now with the budget, we're about $89 million. That includes a construction contingency. It includes the deep dive well. And then what I did in that paragraph above is that I subtracted the deep dive well that's going to be paid by UND. I subtracted the construction contingency. And if we remove all those things, and I know some of the contingencies are going to get added in, we're at about $86 million. And remember, we were at about $110 million budget. So we're about $23+ million under what we anticipated. And that's why we're discussing the courts and the athletic training and all those things. And then finally, 4 is the BMX and the Hugo's Raceway discussion that we had. The first thing that I'm letting you know, and we can approve these administratively, is that we've gone through those requests, and administratively, we can change order some of those improvements that were requested. And so as part of those improvements that we can make as part of the overall district strategy, we can extend the water, wastewater, and fiber services as part of existing contracts that we already have bid. There's also a request for an asphalt or concrete pad and a chain link fence, security fence extension. So those are all things that we can change order into the existing contracts that we can do administratively. But I want to let you know that we're intending to do that, so you have a complete understanding that we're planning to do that. As you recall, also, when we did the site infrastructure, which includes all the underground work, it includes the parking lots, the budget for that was about $10.6 million, and those bids came in at $6.8 million, so almost $4 million under that budget. The funding streams that we would use to change order are from the wastewater and water accounts, similar to what we did with the existing bids. And then also we used Fund 2163, which is our economic development fund, for some of the paving of the parking lots, and those would be the same funds that we use for the change orders. So that's one thing that we're planning to move ahead with, but I wanted to give you a clear signal that we are going to plan to do that. The other part is those items that are not easily change ordered into existing contracts, and those are the buildings, the registration/concession building. It's the retaining wall improvements, it's the covered stage, it's the gate vault and start hill improvements. Those are all projects that would have to have some sort of new design or have a different contractor. Those estimated in BMX, the Red River BMX, they went out to get some estimates, and those total about $742,000. And what I'm asking for City Council today is that you would authorize us to continue to work with the Red River BMX group to develop an agreement and to develop a cost share agreement with them and to bring that back to City Council. So that's what I'm asking for regarding those specific improvements. So just trying to highlight all those areas so you know what we're asking for this evening. And then with that, I'd ask Adam Davidson from JLG to give you an overview of the site itself and the reason why this is so important with all the logistics that we have going on the site. The other thing that's come up, because we've had such good news, no shocker, everybody wants to add stuff into the project, okay? And so there are two items specifically related to the aquatics that I've asked Mr. Davidson to talk about. One is the deck of the pool. There's some discussions on that. And number two was, as you recall, we had a debate on, what are those things that go in the pool? Bulkheads, 1 versus 2. So Adam is going to revive the discussion on bulkheads and let you know why we decided what we did on that, just so you're fully aware of those decisions.
All right, Mr. Davidson, I think that's you. Whoops.
Well, for goodness sakes, here we go. Here we go, Adam. Sorry about that.
Thank you, Mr. Phelan. Good evening, Mayor, City Council members. Let me start off with the court expansion, Hugo's Raceway planning and site infrastructure improvements. So call your attention to items 1, 2, and 3. This is going to talk about the paved improvements we would plan in order to plan for the court addition. This graphic too should look somewhat familiar. This was presented 2 weeks ago in the committee of the whole meeting in terms of the original idea and how we can expand with the court addition. So number 1 in the dashed red line is showing the current paving area that we have right now that's in the scope of the project. As Mr. Phelan talked about with those bidding that we have for the site improvements, this is the paving that we have included in that in the scope today. Item number 2 would be what we would transition to and design to, which is going to be the gray area you see in the background. That would be the new parking area with infrastructure that would be sized and relocated to accommodate the future expansion. Items 3 here are additional opportunities that we have to help with the parking count. As we look with the expansion and relocate the parking, we probably will have a little bit of a reduction in the total parking stalls for the site. So there are a couple areas that we can include to help us supplement some of that parking. So items 3 at the north along that first drive, and item 3 over on the west side, just south of Hugo's Raceway, would be identified. Item number 4 is going to be up front. It's going to be the landscape entry plaza. So this really here is conforming to the new extents of the paving that we have, the infrastructure, the sidewalks, the driveways there. The design itself would essentially stay the same. It's just that we have to update it to conform to the new extent. So I would say minor, but is an impact that we have to update to conform with the new parking and infrastructure. Item number 5 is going to be the parking storm sewer connection. So this is going to be the purple dashed lines here. So this means that the current infrastructure for stormwater for parking would shift with the parking, and then the connection to the remaining storm system that satisfies the entire site goes to the storm pond over on the west side there, which is letter number I, would be updated to help plan for and bypass the future expansion. Item number 6 is going to be sanitary sewer. So with this one here, there is a thin dashed line that comes from the north over to the east and down along 42nd. That's the current sanitary line extension we have for the Ultra Sports Complex, also planning for the future Children's Museum. The thicker green dashed line that goes from that point at north to the west and south would be the proposed sanitary line to serve the future expansion of the sports complex, but also gives us the opportunity to help feed and stub into Hugo's Raceway for any future improvements in terms of restrooms and concessions. The number 7, the blue, is going to be the water line. So very similar to sanitary, you can see that thin dash blue line that's currently there. That's currently what's in the plans for the water. It's a loop around the complex from 42nd on the northeast and then on the southeast and connects back to there. What you see here in the thicker dash line is how we would route around the future expansion, making sure we have no utilities going through that area and planning for the foundations, et cetera, when we plan for that. Number 8, this deals with building foundations. So where the building sits up next to the current building right now is we would look at those foundation lines and make sure that we calculate in the future expansion for the loads. And so we would address those, some minor adjustments and upsizing those foundations to satisfy the future addition when it comes. And then number 9, this would be Hugo's Raceway improvements. As Mr. Phelan talked about, the proposed asphalt and concrete pad that would be along the eastern edge of the raceway, as well as the fence line you can see there on the southern side to kind of complete the security improvements to that. These would complete the site infrastructure improvements necessary both for the future phase addition that we have, so what we've been working on right now, as well as helping and the opportunities with Hugo's Raceway and some of those utility upgrades. The next topic that we have is going to include the bulkhead that Mr. Phelan talked about. So I'll step back here a little bit during the design process, which included the aquatic stakeholders. Or the conversation around bulkheads really deals with body of water and what it can support for different types of meets and courses. I'm not going to be an expert in terms of meets and courses, but when we talked about the secondary bulkhead, the conversation really resolved around that body of water, which is 4 feet by 25 yards. How best to use that body of water? Is it best to use in the 50-meter pool for certain meets that we could get in terms of having the double bulkheads, which could do certain types of courses? Or is it better situated and better utilized over into the instructional pool as an additional lane for swim lessons and other swimming activities? And like all decisions with the sports complex, it's really resolved around how does this decision best aligned with operations and revenue. And so when we talked about that from a forecasting standpoint, having that 4-foot fifth lane instructional pool, which helps with swimming lessons and other activities, and the projections for revenue with that to make the facility more profitable was greater than it would be if we could get maybe another meter or two with the additional bulkhead over in the pool. And this bulkhead is the smaller of the two. We really have two bulkheads we were looking at. One, which we have now, is a 2 meter, which is 6.5 feet wide. This would have been the smaller of the two at a 4 foot wide. And so as the decision-making process, we got to it, the recommendation by the team, which included the aquatic stakeholder group, was to proceed with the water over in the instructional pool as a fifth lane versus having the additional bulkhead over in the 50-meter competition pool. The last topic would be on the pool deck. So again, very similar, a lot of conversation we had with the aquatics group about all the various products and finishes out there for pool decks, for lockers in pool and what areas. There are quite a few products out there, from tile, epoxies, to rubber coatings, concrete. And we talked through that, really looking at three things and balancing of those three things. One is going to be durability, cleanability. The other one's going to be safety, and the other one's going to be budget and cost. And so as we work through with the Park District and the aquatics group about what they have now with choice, what are some options, and where we're at with the budget right now, where we fell with that was on a swirled brush concrete finish. And what that is, it's a concrete finish that has a specific brush technique to it to help with slip resistance and traction with it. That gives it really, it's durable, it's safe, it's also more budget friendly than some of the other options that we have. So back to that balance of what that is. Ideally, if we'd gone with tile at the time, we probably looked at something like that, or maybe another surface. But again, the decisions and the information we had at the time, that was going to be the best value for the project. In the locker rooms, we want to have a higher quality product, so we do have floor tile in all the locker rooms that are there, which is a little higher quality product. Some of the other systems which have been recently proposed is a vulcanized or a Vulcan flooring. It's a rubber coating system. It really comes in 2 or 3 parts: EPDM, polyurethane, a lot of other chemicals that are out there, but it's really a layered system that provides a high quality durable surface. And we do see it a lot in exterior applications too, because of its use with sun and heat, and it's really nice to walk on versus concrete out in the exterior, but it also used in interior environments too as well. It's a coating system. Like all coating systems, over time they will wear, they will need repair, recoating. Concrete's more forgiving that way, but on the flip side, they are a little easier to clean too than concrete. So again, it's about that balancing between the durability, cleanability, the safety, and the budget. And that's how we got to where we are today with it. The one thing I'll say about any changes to the pool deck at this point, it would be a pretty critical design that we'd have to instigate right away. And the reason why is that it affects the finished floor elevation of our pool deck. So the drainage and the finished floor elevation of the pool deck is critical to make sure we get that right, so we have no ponding water anywhere on the pool deck for safety reasons and just cleanability. To do that now, and you go with a different surface, whether it be a tile or a rubber coating, there's a thickness to that, meaning that we have to lower the slab to accommodate that thickness and then redesign the grading to have that happen. Currently in the process with construction, Mirtha, who is the contractor and pool supplier for the project, pool supplier mainly, not contractor, is already going through their shop drawing and submit that based off of what we have today. And so what I'm saying is that any change in direction with the pool deck, we can definitely look at. Anything is possible. Would have schedule and cost delays at this point due to implementing that, redesigning that, putting that back out, and then the supplier and the contractor to adapt to that with updated shop drawings, etc. So with this, I think I hit all 3 topics, and I'll turn it over to Oliver, and we'll go over the updated GMP. Thanks, everybody.
Do we have just a quick question? I mean, we're talking on this pool deck. Is this a $100,000 change, a $2 million change? I heard $20 a square foot roughly, and then what's the redesign?
Yeah, we would have to actually reach out to local contractors and suppliers of a specific product or other like products to gain a true understanding what the price would be.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be in the millions, but probably would be in the 6 figures depending on the extent of it and the use of it, which would include any redesign or schedule implications too with that. So Mayor, I don't have a specific number. We could work towards a more specific number, but I think I'd be pretty confident I'd be in the six figures eventually once everything is calculated up.
And there may be some operations and maintenance savings that the Park District can get with this floor.
Possibly. It would need further study and exploration to see what that is in terms of like the cleaning and whatnot. I would think we'd be pretty minimal, though, Mayor, in terms of that. Again, I think the rubber flooring would be a little bit easier to clean in terms of power washing and soap, but the flooring's clean the same. You know, it just depends maybe how longer you're actually power washing the concrete versus that to get some of that soap residue off of there would be some of the considerations to look at.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Anybody else, anything for Adam since I called him back up? No, all right. Mr. Fenneman, please.
All right. Well, good evening, Mayor and members of the council. I am going to give you an updated preliminary estimate as to where the building construction budget is at. So I say preliminary because we're right now in the process of vetting out all the bids that we received a couple weeks ago and just finalizing our pricing. So we're close, but we're not at a final spot right now. So starting out on this form, I think you guys have seen this before a number of times. We've got just our budget history across the top in red, with the most current one being on the far left side. And what this is we have GMP number 1 that's been approved that included the building structure, concrete, etc. And then we've added to that our estimated cost for GMP number 2 that included things like the interior walls and the ceilings and the pool and all those other build outs. So essentially what that is it's the full price of what we believe the building will cost. So right now, our construction estimate that does not include the site work is $81,216,000. Adding to that would be the design fees and testing of about $8.5 million, brings us to the building estimated cost at $89.7 million. So included in that, as Mr. Phelan said, was the construction contingency that will be carried throughout construction, includes the cost for the UND deep dive well, and then 5 of the alternates noted below. And those are the elevated walking track, the movable partition walls in the multi-purpose rooms, and then 2 additional sets of curtains in the turf space. So those were alternates at the time of bidding. Based off of the bid results, those have now been added into the guaranteed maximum price projections. So looking at where the current project budget of $110 million less the $89.7 million leaves you with $20.3 million that can go towards project contingency, which is currently not included in any of these projections. And then the balance can be used for any project enhancements. Yeah, I think that pretty well wraps up the update.
All right, I'll open to one question for you, Mr. Finneman, on the infrastructure and what Mr. Davidson had shown before. I mean, what's the timeline on being able to, I mean, we must be getting up against it pretty close on rerouting some of that. What's the timeline on that? When do you need to kind of know how that's going to go?
Ideally within the next month and a half, probably, okay, so that that utility work can still get done this construction season.
Okay. Yeah, Ms. Lunsky, please.
So just real quick, in this number, it obviously doesn't include the 6-figure pool deck, right?
Correct.
How about FF&Es?
That is not included in there, but funded elsewhere.
I think as Marine, I think we got about 1.2 or 3. That's in a separate account, not from this capital funding account. That's we've accounted for that separately.
Can I ask where it's coming from?
We do, sorry. Mayor Boczynski, members of council, Councilperson Lunsky. So we do have 1.2 million set aside. It is coming from that 0.75% sales tax, but it is set aside in a reserve for FF&E estimated cost.
Thank you.
All right, looks like no questions. More questions for you, Mr. Finneman. Mr. Phelan, were you, or maybe it's a question for the council, were you wanting to do the first three items and the BMX item separately, as you did at the committee of the whole, or what? Is that kind of general nod? You'll have to make the motion at the end. I'm just. All right, any questions or comments? Will be the time. Ms. Lunsky, please.
So can we wait on the BMX until we know how much the courts are going to cost, or how much? It feels like we're pre-spending money until we actually know how much money we have for it's going to.
I think, yeah, Mr. Phelan, you want to, I know, Mr. Weigel, I know there's some timelines with some different events that could be coming on the horizon, so I don't know who wants to take that question, but Mr.
Mayor
Phelan, why don't you start?
Buchanski and Council Member Linsky, I think on the items that we can change order readily, I think those are going to be de minimis items that aren't going to be dramatic. So we're planning administratively to incorporate those through change order, through those existing. The other part, the larger dollar amount, which is that, $700,000 plus item, what I'm asking for today on that motion is that we can just engage with Red River BMX to look to move forward with an agreement that would have a various cost share. That's going to take a little bit of time, but in the meantime, we would bring that back to you when we're ready to do that. But in the meantime, we'll have some better understanding about some of these other costs too. So those would work in parallel, the bigger costs with BMX with what we're looking at with courts and performance and some of these other things that we're asking under the JLG agreement of $46,000 that we can kick that off and start working on those particulars.
Do you have anything to add, Mr. Weigel? All right, Ms. Osowski, please.
I'm really happy about the numbers, the 90 million, but then that 90 million does not include, like Mrs. Lunsky said, the FF&Es. And also, there is $20 million in contingencies, which I think we really need to account for. We do not want to overspend. I do. Before we go and look at the courts and everything, I would like to see this just kind of get done and make sure that we're actually in budget. I think if we don't use the $20 million for contingencies, that might, help us be able to fund other things. But so with the $20 million in contingencies, we're right at our goal of 110. That still does not include, the waste water that we're pulling funds out of and 2163. I still think that we're a little bit over budget, but I'm a lot happier with where we stand right now. I find it really disappointing that now we're talking about just overspending again, because this is a project that I can really get on board with right now with where we are in spending. But when we're not even including contingencies or the fixtures, I find it also concerning that now we're saying we have, I don't feel it was ever talked about before, but $1.6 million set aside for FFEs out of the same sales tax. I mean, we are already at bond capacity with our $100 million. And so I'm really concerned with how much money we're spending on this sales tax that we don't even really have at this point. If we were to motion today on, moving forward with the 90 million plus the 20 million in contingencies with the project that we currently have, I'm all on board with that. I am not on board with adding the basketball courts or the volleyball courts. And I have a lot of questions about some of those things. Like, has anybody even talked to the park board? I reached out to the park board, and they said that there wasn't even much communication with the city of Grand Forks and the park board on adding basically a whole nother facility that they have to support. It was also my understanding that the basketball courts were not added in the beginning because people who play basketball already have basketball courts to play in. Yeah, it would be nice for tournaments, but a lot of these youth clubs, they don't have large pockets either, just like BMX doesn't have large pockets, and they're asking for our assistance. Are they even going to be able to afford to rent these, especially when some of them have the school systems that they get to play basketball in. You know, we have Shoot 360 or 360 Shoot, you know, a private basketball club. Is it really something that we want to try to dump another $23 million into when there are basketball courts in this town? And if they're being utilized for practices and smaller tournaments, how many people are really going to rent a $23 million building? And if we don't rent it out, the cost of people renting that is just going to go up. And so I have a lot of major concerns about not the original project anymore, but continuously adding to it. And I would like to get this project, you know, more across the finish line. The contingencies, I know that they dwindle away as we move forward, which is great, and really see where we're going to end up, because I still think there are a lot of unknowns. And so I don't support looking into building the basketball courts. And at this point, I don't support the BMX track, but I feel that that would be something that I could get a little bit more on board with, because I think that they do an excellent job helping fund themselves. But I really have an issue with going over this $110 million. So thank you.
All right, thank you. Mr. Hellier, if you could talk on the Park District part, we'll have you come up real quick, and then we can talk bond capacity and FF&E with Ms. Storstad. And then Mr. Finneman, if you want to talk the difference between project contingency and construction contingency, that'd be helpful. But Mr. Hellier, maybe just give us your thoughts. Obviously, the original survey showed, a great need for these courts. They had to get dropped off. Maybe talk about that, and then talk about the communication with the city, so we at least make sure we've got that cleared up.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. We've had conversations with, the park board's had some preliminary conversations with Mayor and Todd Phelan about, the expansion possibilities and what that possibly would look like. Preliminary, but we've started those conversations. I think going back to the feasibility study, there was talk of the basketball courts and the need of that. We reached out to the Fast Break Club, was the organization we visited with. They were interested in more basketball courts, more volleyball courts, with Stars Volleyball is who we talked to on that front. Currently, volleyball and basketball does use schools' gymnasiums. That's heavily used on there, and the reason they use that is they can get in there for free and use those services. But not everybody can use those services. We heard from some different individuals outside of those clubs. There's private teams, parent-run clubs, parent-run teams that do some different travel teams, that type of thing. They can't get into the schools as easily as some of the others, so those are some that we heard from. How many are there out there that, we don't know that, how many private teams there are, how many parent teams are, but there are some out there. Looking at growing, basketball and volleyball, I think that would be the other thing that we want to consider is currently there's limits that we can do at Choice Health and Fitness with our usage there. School district, there's current limits on that. We've used to use, for Grand Am City League, we used to use the Ralph. We don't use that as much anymore, the Betty, I mean. This would give us opportunities to maybe expand basketball, expand volleyball going forward. So I think more work needs to be done, but I think there's opportunities there to grow those games, grow those participants, and allow the private teams and some of those other clubs opportunities to use those facilities that they can't get into the school district right now.
Thank you. I guess I'll ask you one simple question. Is the Park District excited about the potential of adding courts to this facility?
Yeah, the Park District's definitely excited. We're looking at
And sports training, yeah.
sports training and the basketball courts and the volleyball courts. We're definitely excited and looking forward to working with the city to try and to grow it. Obviously, we're concerned about what the cost would be on the operations side, and we haven't done any O&M budgets for the basketball courts. That was never on the, we never got to that point on that because we didn't think there was going to be enough money. The sports training we did preliminary, and we're currently reworking through all our numbers that we did a year ago because things have changed. But yeah, we're definitely excited about exploring those opportunities and see what kind of comes out of that.
Perfect. Any questions for George? And thanks for being here. Appreciate that. President Sandy, please.
Hey, George. So is the Park District going to be working the pro formas on the revenues and expenses related to the operations of the new courts? Yes, correct. We're currently working on the
the current facility as approved by the city council. So we're currently putting those together. We have weekly meetings where we're going through that process right now, trying to update that information. Our very next step would be going through the basketball courts and volleyball courts and putting together performance for that to get our arms around what kind of costs and subsidies that would need.
Thank you, George. And thanks for showing up tonight. I appreciate it.
All right, thank you. Ms. Orsted?
Thank you, Mayor, members of council. I do just want to clarify, the FF&E is 1.2 million. We have shown it consistently on previous presentations, that we have those funds set aside separate from the 110. So I just want to make sure you have that information. I think also maybe just with the bonding capacity, if I could help you understand a little bit better to make you feel better about that 100 million. So when we're looking, it's not that we can only borrow 100 million, but the 100 million is looking at very good coverage of like 1 3/4 to 2 times coverage. So to give you a ballpark, so we currently 0.75% sales tax is like 11.5 million. We project by 2027 that's about 12.2 million. The estimated bond payment is about 6.6 million. So it's very good coverage on that, and the remainder is, for all the capital needs, and we set aside for future capital for the 2 facilities. So, we do have this time period where we have the remaining amount on the Alara Center, and that's part of the plan to pay down that, and then the new rolls on. But all in all, it's roughly that 6.5 million annual payment that we're looking at. So just want to give a little, more information on that.
Thank you. And George, yeah, just so we can understand, or not George, sorry, Oliver, help us understand, like you've got it written on your, under project contingency, is that expected to be used for the current project the way it sits, or explain that versus the construction contingency, so we've got that narrowed down?
Yeah, so we'll have, throughout this project, we'll be left with 2 types of contingency. One is the construction contingency, and that's called insurance to make sure that we've got coverage on what's in our guaranteed maximum price to get us to the end. And, a simple one that construction contingency gets used for a lot is like winter. If we have a really bad winter and we need to remove a lot of snow, we have to thaw out ground to keep construction going. That's what we would draw on construction contingency for. It's inside of our guaranteed maximum price. So if we burn through all our construction contingency at that point, those costs are on us. So you're kind of capped at the guaranteed maximum price. Now, project contingency, which 20 million would be an extremely large project contingency, owner contingency. Generally, those are somewhere between 3 and 5% of the construction value. So in this case, for easy math, maybe like $3 million. And what that's intended to be used for would be, one, for any unforeseen conditions that occur during construction. So one thing that we don't have control over is what is in the ground that wasn't noted in the testing that was done. So if there's a lot of unsuitable soils that are 20 feet down that need to be removed, those are the type of things that would come out of an owner contingency. Good news is we're well into earthwork, and so some of those risks are starting to drop off. A lot of what we see that the owner contingency is used for changes to the project during construction. The design team does a great job of designing buildings, but until people are in spaces and they can actually see how they're functioning, sometimes there are changes that are needed just to make the building operate correctly that just weren't understood at the time when they saw it on the plans. So that's generally what like a project contingency would be used for. Does that make sense?
Well, yeah, I guess the broader question was the 20 million, are you planning, is that planned to be used for this, or is that available for potentially a phase 2?
That 20 million is, I guess that's the available funds right now, and it can go towards, project contingency, phase 2, kind of, just how.
But as far as your GMP, you're locked in. 2.3 is a construction contingency. You go build this thing and there's something you missed and it's more, that comes out of your pocket, not ours. So that 89,665 isn't going up unless we decide to change something.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, Mr. Veen, yeah, there's our expert on contingency, so.
No, I think the explanation we gave for contingencies is spot on. You need to make sure both of them are there. You know, initially you'd have a design contingency too, and now as this thing moves on, we got the construction contingency and the owner's contingency. So that's great. Probably the question that I have is with the great bidding environment we had, and we have the additional funding to do the courts and the sports training, something that maybe that you referred to as phase 2. It seems pretty likely that the project that we currently have that's being bid and constructed right now will have to have revisions to it. And I think Adam, on that one sheet that I saw come up, kind of outlined a number of those revisions that would have to be there with the moving of the court, or moving of the parking lot, for instance, the moving of the utilities, and all of that. That design, even though it's already been bid and phase 1 had been awarded, there's going to be some change orders to be able to change, as I think they said, maybe some of the footing design, whatever that, so we could do that addition now. And so there's various implications of what we're doing. I say this in it's a good way, that we're thinking ahead. We know there's possibilities anyway that we would do the phase 2, but we also know that there's implications to what we have right now with what's being proposed. When is it that we will be able to actually get, I guess, a more defined number for what we're having? Because right now, I love the discussion we have and all of the options we have, but the information is somewhat segmented. If this happens or that happens, it's going to be a change. I know at one time we had talked about that you would be coming back with the bid package 2 in next meeting in July, I think the 14th, and then council on the 21st. I guess I'm having trouble right now because I don't have anything. A lot of this was presented today, getting my arms around what the true impacts of those costs actually are. I think they're out there, and I think there's been quite a bit of discussion. But I'd like to know a little bit more precisely what that means, because even the layout of the utilities for the phase 2 will be different if we do the BMX or we don't. I mean, there's variability here. It seems like throughout. It's getting better, but this opportunity to me has made it a little bit less clear, is what I was thinking.
Mayor Bachensky and Councilmember Veen, I'll take the first stab, and then Adam, if you can follow me. When we first thought of this utility plan that we're showing here with the water, we first thought before we bid it, what if we could do the courts within a reasonable amount of time? And when the mayor and Marina and I were talking about, we were talking maybe within 10 years. We'd accumulate enough on the sales tax that we'd be able to contemplate. And the discussion we have is, should we make these modifications to the utilities in advance so that we don't have to come back? For example, the water, should we just loop the water this way in advance anyway? So those are some of the things that we talked about. I think what I would, when we have a discussion next week, I would propose with the bids that we would want to reinforce the building that Adam talked about right here, assuming something's going to happen. I would set up the underground infrastructure so it's out of the way, so that if it doesn't happen in a year, but it happens in a little bit longer, we don't have to go back there and move the utilities. So I would reinforce the building as part of this, a change order. I would put the utilities where we think the future expansion will be in the future. Those are all things that I think would be reasonable that we would do within our existing contracts. And even if you accept a GMP, we may have to come back and do some change orders with a specific contractor. The only additional funding right now that we're asking for is, again, it's kind of reminiscent of phase 1 of this project. We want to do some more work so we can come back with some more detailed answers because we don't have that. So that's why we're asking for an agreement of $46,566 with JLG to begin the programming and pre-design scope of services work that will help us get some more details. And it looks like when Adam and JLG put together the time frame, that they asked that they would be back here in September with some additional information. And if everything kind of checked out and was going well, we would then do something similar to what we did under phase one. We'd ask to go to schematic design, we'd go to design development and all those other design portions because we'd be off to the races at this point in time. Those are all the things that we're asking for tonight. And really what we're asking for City Council this evening is, are we serious enough about this opportunity that we want to start making plans for it? Do you have enough, knowing that there's a plethora of details that we got to work on, but the first thing that we're asking for is just an agreement of a little over $46,000 to begin that work. The other thing, if you give us some good feedback, we'll go back to those under GMP, because all this underground utilities are under GMP 1. So we'd have to go back, and I think that's what Oliver was talking about. Well, we kind of have to make a decision. I think under, the COW next week in the council, we should make some decisions of, do we want to go back to the contractors and revise our underground utility plan and make those modifications? So those are all indications that we're thinking about with that. Maybe I'd hand it over to Adam if I missed anything.
No, that was pretty good, Mr. Phelan. Thank you. Councilmember Veen, a couple of things with the site planning. Mr. Phelan did a good job on utilities. The thing to know about utilities right now is that we don't have all the orders placed yet for utility infrastructure. Now would be the prime opportunity to make the adjustments to plan for the future, as we haven't gone that far yet. So we're not necessarily losing anything. This would be a change order, Mr. Veen, to the current contract, to the GMP that we're about to discuss. Yes, bid pack 1, this would be a change order, but now would be the time to bring the most value to the city to do this and plan for the future. The second piece that's really important to understand about this is the paving. The site paving out there is going to be concrete. That has a 25-plus year lifespan or more. To go and say we're going to do this in 10 years, to tear up that concrete in 10 years would not be the best value to the city to do that, which is the reason why we would suggest, and again, nothing has been completely purchased yet. Even the grading right now is really strictly to the building, so a lot of that grading work has not completely taken off in very early stages. To get that relocated now, so we have that in the proper place to provide for any future expansion, wherever that happens to be, within the next 10 years. So those are two things to say there. On the program pre-design.
Yeah, can I?
Oh, yes,
if I could, I would agree 100% with what you said. I mean, we knew that we would have to move that concrete parking lot with the original design. And now with this concept, we'll probably get it in the right place anyway. So I think that's it. And your utilities and everything to serve the building. I like what Todd said, do the looping, because then it doesn't matter what you can do. All of that, I think, makes absolute sense. To try to do this, even if we don't do phase 2. It would seem to me to be the right thing to do, but making that change now is a change from what was originally bid in bid packages 1 and 2. So we need to know a little bit about what the implications of those changes are going to be, right?
Yes, that's correct. So we have about a 4 to 6 week design to get those changes updated, delivered to the contractor as a change order, who then will do who would do the pricing for the change order, which at that point will understand what the value is of the change, and can be able to present that to council so we know what that change is moving forward. So that's our timeline right now to complete those changes that we just discussed.
Yeah. Although you could do back of the napkin type of estimating based on the bids we just got in to give us a pretty good idea of what those costs would be without having to wait that many weeks to be precise. We could take a look at this stuff earlier just to know, hey, is this got merit or not, and is it worth the additional cost, et cetera, right?
Yes, we can do what we call kind of a rough order magnitude and use the numbers we have, work with the Big Gulf team, the CE team to understand what potential they could be. They would be a forecast, right? Because we don't have final design yet, but it would give us an understanding of what those would be. That's correct, Mr. Veen.
Do Just a quick question on that. Do you expect, if you have an extra quantity of pipe, that we're going to get the same price? I mean, we got great bids, so you've got an price per linear foot. Now you got to loop it, so you're going to have more footage. Do you expect that we'll be able to carry over the prices that on those change orders that came in the first bids, just with an increased quantity?
I think that the amounts we're talking about, besides maybe sanitary, are all almost, I wouldn't say a wash, but I mean, they're very close to what we're removing. The water is a good example that, yeah, it's a little bit over what we have in terms of linear foot, but it's still pretty minor. The storm piping for the parking, more or less is the same. We're shifting it with the parking. Okay. And so besides sanitary, which is probably the one where we do have the most added linear footage for utilities, the rest are fairly minor. Even the parking, the paving is roughly, if anything, a reduction in the amount of paving we have. That doesn't necessarily mean we get a deduct in price. That's the amount we have. So the changes we're talking about are extremely minimal, and it's really more relocating and planning than it is wholehearted adding to the project, if that makes sense.
Yeah, well, and obviously the cost would be many multiples higher if we do this later rather than doing it now.
Yes.
We've got the ground opened up.
Absolutely. Okay. Yep, that's correct.
Any other questions? Ms. Lunsky, please. And thank you.
I apologize, but you kind of lost me when it was brought up 10 years. We're looking at doing this now, not 10 years, right?
So the conversations we've had is that, and here's our recommendation from the design team, if you plan to do this within 10 years, could be 5 years, could be 3 years, to do this, so we would recommend doing these changes we're presenting now to better plan for that, to save the most money, provide the best value for the city, especially on the paving. Because concrete paving, once you put it in, is there for 25 plus years.
Okay. So tonight we're voting on the 46,000 to JLG. What exactly does that get us?
So this is going to be a programming and pre-design. This is going to help establish the project in terms of what is the space program, what's the size of the building, how does that work with the operations that the Park District has. So we'd work with them in tangent about right-sizing the building to what they need to make this a profitable and successful facility. Is that 4 courts? How much athletic training spaces do we need? So that's really what we're going to get out of it, as well as a much more detailed cost estimate at this level. Still higher level, but it's going to be more detailed, and it's going to be actually taken off quantities that we have within drawings. So it's more accurate information about what this addition could look like, what it could cost, the timeline, and how does that work out with the performance of the operations of the Park District.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and just to clear, the original conversation was before the bids came in so well. We thought, well, it'd be great to get this done. This was originally had been something we'd hoped to be in the project, had gotten pulled because the funds weren't there. So we said maybe we can look at it in 10 years when all of us will be gone. Maureen will still be here, and she could figure it out. But the bids came in better, so we have the opportunity to look at it now, at least get the costs figured out where that would be. But that's where that kind of got lost, but we're back. All right, any other comments? President Sandy, please. You've been waiting patiently.
Thanks, Mayor. I know Danny's been waiting more patiently than I have. I know, Mr. Phelan, with all due respect, when you say that the changes are de minimis, I love that word. The lawyers love that word. I actually want the numbers. So I do want to see the difference, what the costs are for BMX versus the cost for the new facility. Even if it's $12, I'd still like to know. I really don't see any problem going forward with BMX working to find an agreement and try to come together and see how we can make that work. But my expectation would be that we would see the actual numbers when the actual bids and I mean, if we're going to be investing in a building, I think we should see actually what it is, what the costs are, what the specifications are on the building. Of course, and Danny and I visited about this over the weekend, that and it was actually Danny's mention of wanting to use materials that are similar to the athletic facility that we're building, so that it isn't an eyesore. I think that's actually really important, because we were going to have a really incredible building that everyone from the interstate is going to see, and now we're talking about putting up a building in front of it. And so I think making sure that it's well designed and it meets our requirements, and maybe if we could design it so that as you drive by, it looks like it's part of the building and you can't even can't even see it, I don't know. We'll leave that up to Mr. Wesley. But I would like to see that, and the costs separated between the courts. I am a little surprised, knowing that we were thinking that we would probably build the courts at some point in the future, that we didn't move the utilities in the first place. It's one of those, here we are, and we all say, yeah, we should have done that. And I'm surprised it didn't ring a bell in my head. Last thing I'll say, regarding the courts, I'm not excited about building the courts, but then again, I wasn't excited about building the whole facility, so nobody, I'm sure, is surprised by that. I feel like I don't understand the finances of operations, and so I would like to talk more about that at some point. Mr. Gosted, though, I've got a specific question related to the language for the sales tax dollars. I keep looking online trying to find the actual language that we used for that vote. I can never find it. What specifically can we use the dollars for? I thought it was quality of life stuff.
Yeah, it would fit within the courts would be in part of that. I don't have it memorized either, and I can certainly get you the language that was on the ballot. It should be in the home rule charter.
Yeah, it's around somewhere.
Yeah.
Well documented.
We've got it. And the use of the funds would, from my memory, would clearly fit within these court edition, would be something that could be used for.
I would agree with that. I'm trying to figure out what else we can use those funds for, and specifically again, let's high level, and going back, I don't know, a year and a half ago, when we were looking at the operationals budget that was put forward by the park district. There was so much for swimming lessons and so much for the Wahoos. We're going to rent space, and the soccer club is renting the field, and now the mayor pointed out that the pickleballers are paying their share, which is great, right? So, but now we're talking about building a facility that I'm not, even though we have letters of appreciation. I'm not sure that the major users of the courts are actually going to be interested in paying to use the courts. So if the two biggest users or the three biggest users, a couple volleyball clubs, basketball, fast break, if they're not interested in paying for the basketball facility, I'm concerned that it feels like a little bit of a hodgepodge, because you have to pay, but your percentage only covers 12% of the operational expense. Yet you guys in football, because you have 87 people on your team, you're going to pay 38% of the operational cost, but pickleballers pay $10 a night, but swimming lessons are $8, or you can buy a pass for swim lessons for a month. It just feels like it's all over the place. I keep thinking to myself, especially again, and I have no problem with people wanting to build courts. I'd love to build the courts. If we have the money to build the courts and we had endless supply of cash, we should build courts. We'll have courts everywhere. What I keep thinking though is, what if we don't build the courts, and then we allow everyone to use the facility for free because we have the money to pay for the operations of the entire facility?
I think Mr. Gostick can touch on that one. I think the operations is the one piece that's capital.
That would be, again, I don't have it in front of me, but I'd be a little bit concerned about using the sales tax dollars for operational expenses.
Sure, but what else can those sales tax dollars be used for? Can they be used for roads?
The vote is for either the Alaris Center or this facility.
Only? I thought it was also for quality of life projects.
I don't know if I can't remember again.
See, that's why I was asking, exactly.
Working off of memory here. It was broad, but I would be concerned about using it for operational expenses.
Okay.
Vice President Weigel so aptly has pulled it up on his phone, so he will read it back to you.
It took me a long time to find it too, a couple weeks ago. It says, shall subsection P2 of Article 3 of the Home Rule Charter for the City of Grand Forks be amended to add financing, design, acquisition, construction, reconstruction, and/or leasing of health and wellness multi-use facilities and related land, fixtures, and infrastructure improvements as authorized. Use of the proceeds from 3/4 cent gross retail sales tax authorized to be imposed by this subsection of the Home Rule Charter, with the added health and wellness facilities to be used as centers for health, wellness, fitness, exercise, athletic, aquatic, and/or recreational activities, functions, and events, along with eliminating the proposed subsection of P2 of Article 3.
So that kind of confirms my concern about using it for operational expenses.
It's thoroughly disappointing, but
Now, I can add one item, Councilmember President Sandy, is that under the agreement that was approved several weeks ago with the Park District, there is contemplated an operations manual by the Park District that they develop that would include some of the items that you're concerned about with respect to, what are the fees going to be? What are the costs going to be? What are the rentals going to be? It's something the Park District would develop and present it to the city council. But they are to develop that operations manual.
I think we should look at the sales tax dollars and see how creative we can be, because perhaps we have other funds that can be used to cover the operations of the facility that can be replaced with funds from this sales tax. I think we should take a real look at that because, again, we've been talking about wanting the world's greatest athletic facility for the citizens of Grand Forks. I think it would be great if we could just cover the costs, allow people to use it and really use it as a beacon for attracting people to our community. If we can't, we can't. But I think it would be great if we could do that. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. I would love if the Alaris Center did the same thing and we could go to Zach Bryan concerts for free. That'd be great. And if I could run on that football field just one more time, that'd be good too. But certainly worth thinking about and discussing.
So that sarcasm tells me that you're not even going to bother looking.
We'll definitely look at it. I think it'll be Maureen that's going to look at it. So
I think Mayor.
I think we can
Mayor
go through the budget.
Wojciechowski, and frankly, we've had discussions with the Park District. They're looking at. They've asked a specific question. Right now, they're covering any of the deficits as per the agreement. If we add courts on, they're going to, take a further review. But they've asked the question too. Well, will the city help pay for the operations? For now, we've said no, but we've tried to take most of the capital items off their funding. So that's one area as part of this project, whether it's the new build, whether it's the rehabilitation, any major capital is going to come from the city of Grand Forks. So that's how we've eased some of those one-time major costs as part of the operation.
And I do think we got to, contemplating tournaments, that's one of the big drivers here, and I think the courts give us the opportunity. Certainly with volleyball, we have the Grand Dam. I think that can expand. We've seen what good facilities can do to bring in big events, just like BMX. I think we're the only ones in the state that get, I forget if it's a gold crown or a national or whatever the word is, but it's a big deal. Sorry.
Yeah.
Ms. Sorstad, please.
Yes, thank you. And I think just to add to the operating, the stream that you're talking about, President Sandy, that the city council could consider would be the economic development sales tax. So, and maybe that's something that we can grow into too over the years, because if this place works as designed and we get more tournaments and get more activity, get more, economic activity to increase that base, there's always more funding from that stream too. But that would be the stream I would look at, is that economic development portion, if that's something down the road that city council wanted to look at.
I think that's probably the only logical source. You're not, general fund stuff wouldn't make sense to go there. But. All right, further comments from council?
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, Mr. Veen, please.
Okay, one question, probably for Todd. The $46,000 that you were looking at here would not be for design. It would be programming, pre-design, probably looking at operations, developing potentially a pro forma, and also look at what changes in the operations agreement we would get?
Mayor Buczynski and Councilmember Veen, I think one more thing it would do, it would allow us to have a more refined estimate than we currently have for the courts, the athletic performance piece, and those various other spaces. We'd come back working with not only JLG, but the construction management team, and we'd come back with a more refined cost estimate based upon the program that's further defined. We'd come back with that in September.
Would that include reaching out to the user groups too, to be able to find out a little bit more about what that desire would be? Yeah.
Yes, I agree with that. We've just had some initial outreach to those that were passionate about court activities and athletic performance. They've all given us the preliminary, we're all in, but now the Park District will lead that process and work with the various users, not only the clubs, but all the users and how that would perform. And so we will do that too over these next, several weeks.
Would this also involve additional coordination with BMX at the same time?
It would, that's why over the same time period, that more major request of 700,000, we're going to be engaging with them on an agreement, a cost share partnership. And so we would be working on what those costs are, because likely, as Maureen has just talked, if we're going to help fund those improvements, that would likely come out of your Economic Development Fund, 2163. And so we're going to have to balance that versus, the operating versus, the other projects we probably have coming as soon as next week at the Committee of the Whole. We have these greenway improvements too. And so we've got lots of quality of life investments to go. So we want to make sure we coordinate all those over the next several weeks. But for tonight, we're asking for $46,000 and change that would come from the sales tax to begin the work on this Phase 2 expansion. We're letting you know that we're going to look at the change orders that we went through regarding integrating with the BMX track. And then number 3, we're going to plan for the expansion for the site infrastructure components, whether that's water, sewer, storm, reinforcement. We're going to plan for that to occur. And as Council President Sandy said, we'll bring all those change orders. You will at least see what those change orders are, so you know what those costs are, even if we can approve those administratively.
Can you, well, this is a few weeks out, but as this comes together, we had our not user group, our oversight group. Would this be something that would go through the oversight group for general feedback?
Yes, absolutely. We would. We're in a position where we'd have to re-engage because now we're certainly taking a turn at Phase 2. We're looking at these BMX improvements, so we would add those to the list, leading up to some further decisions in September.
Anything further, Mr. Veen?
No, thank you.
Thank you. All right, further conversation, discussion from council? Otherwise, you could certainly make a motion too.
I will make a motion to approve to move forward with JLG and the 46,000 and change, as well as continuing to engage with the BMX club for further planning.
Can you make those motions separately, please?
I retract that second, and we'll just go with the initial.
All right, are you including, as far as accepting the two GMPs, that's part of this too, do you want to include those with number 3 and do 1, 2, 3 together, and then we'll
Yes.
keep, okay. So I'll let you,
Separate those, please.
why don't we just start with 1 and work our way down?
I motion to approve number 1.
Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second. Further discussion on number 1, as it's listed. All right, seeing no discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Aye.
Motion carries 6-1 with Osowski dissenting.
I'll motion to approve number 2.
All right, item 2. We got a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
I have a question on that
Please,
one.
Mr.
It looked like originally that was going to come back on the 14th and with final on the 21st. Is that still the intent here with number 2?
Mr. Phelan?
Yep, you would. You're approving it to move forward to the 14th and 21st, as written.
Okay.
All right, any further discussion? All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously.
A motion to move forward with number 3.
Okay, we got a motion for number 3. Do we have a second? A second for Mr. Friedolfs. So 1 and 2 were motioned by Ms. Berg and seconded by President Sandy. Item 3 was motioned by Ms. Berg, seconded by Mr. Friedolfs. Further discussion on item 3?
Question on that one, Mayor. That one also says it's set for the 14th and the 21st.
Mayor Buczynski and Councilmember Vian. So the 14th and the 21st, what's coming back is GMP number 2 is coming back. The last paragraph in number 3 is to authorize an agreement with JLG to perform those preliminary design work as described.
Ms. Lunsky, do you want me to read that off? So you got,
Well,
okay.
I have a question, because like, I see A, B, C, like, I'm confused about what 1 actually is, or what 2 actually is.
It's on my.
Oh, in the staff report?
In the staff
Okay,
report,
okay,
yes.
got it. Thank you.
All right, any further discussions on item 3? We do have a motion and a second. All right, seeing no further discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-2 with Sandy and Osowski dissenting.
A motion to move forward with number 4.
Got a motion for Ms. Berg for for number 4 within this item. Under the staff recommendation, do we have a second?
Can you read this one, or this is?
I can read this one, sure. This is going to take a minute, but I can read it. Let me just, do we have a second first before I read it? We got a second for Mr. Friedolf. So motion for Ms. Berg, second for Mr. Friedolfs. Red River BMX's request to City of Grand Forks financial support for capital improvements to the Hugo's Raceway between an estimated $719,380 and $864,380. And the city administration is requesting to work with the Red River BMX on the capital improvements proposed to include planning, construction funding, and related items. The capital improvements generally include registration and concession building, site support, infrastructure, and track improvements. The goals of capital investments are to make significant improvements to safety, access, and aesthetics as part of the overall district, expand capacity for youth in the community, and to help further make the Hugo's Raceway a premier facility for the regional and national events. City administration, architects, engineers, and CMAR will provide further information and recommendations at the city council meeting on July 7th, which is happening. The city administration and the ASC project team can incorporate and change order infrastructure development to the Hugo's Raceway as part of the site infrastructure development to include water, wastewater, and fiber services, and an asphalt, concrete pad, and chain link fence extension. These improvements are proposed to be paid from the city infrastructure designated funds. Authorize appropriate change orders to design city projects, respective contractors, and city designated funding sources. The Red River BMX is also requesting consideration of city funding or financing for the Hugo's Raceway facility improvements for registration, concession building, retaining wall, and corner improvements. These costs, this is included at the $742,750, along with city funding and/or finance. The Red River BMX is planning to designate its own funds, contractor, in-kind donations, and other grant funding. Authorize city administration to negotiate an agreement and funding plan with Red River BMX regarding the Hugo's Raceway capital improvements for future city council consideration and approval. So that is the motion, and it would be an agreement that would come back. So you would have final say once the agreement and the negotiations take place.
So we're not voting on spending that money, we're just voting on continuing conversation.
To come up with a plan to later be voted on. All right, any further discussion? Anybody want me to read it again? No? All right. With that, and seeing no further discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Aye.
Motion carries 6-1 with Ostowski dissenting. Thank you. I think that's all we got for 511. Is that true? Thanks, Dana. All right, move on to item 6, information items.
6.1 6.1, statement of changes to cash balance for April 30th and May 31st.
Thank you. Item 7, approval of minutes and bills.
7.1, vendor list and engineer's estimate, that's attached.
Got a motion to approve the
So
bills?
moved.
Motion from Ms. Burke, second from Vice President Weigel. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously.
And 7.2, minutes from June 16th.
Motion to approve.
Motion approved from Ms. Berg, second from Ms. Lunsky. Seeing no further comment, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously. Item 8, citizen comments of the general nature. Any comments this evening? Ms. Lundmark?
I have one in person, and then there were also attached to the agenda a packet of about 50 to 60 electronically received comments.
Okay, thank you.
So our in-person speaker, Barbara Knipe.
All right, Ms. Knight, please come forward to the mic, and thank you for waiting so patiently. Much appreciated.
Good evening.
And then we got a 5-minute clock, and if you peek up in the corners, it'll give you an idea where you're at on your time, but...
This will take about 60 seconds.
Perfect. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Barbara Knipe. I live at 819 North 24th Street. As a Grand Forks City resident and voter in Rebecca Osowski's Ward 2, and as a member of the Grand Forks North Neighbors and the Grand Forks University Park Neighbors Association organizations, I would state that our organizations are totally approved and in favor of the mural. This is on the North Dakota, previously was the State School for the Blind. It is now providing, there is no school residence, but it provides excellent services for limited vision and people who are blind. I support the mural. I support the mural for the following reasons, and there are 4. Number 1, this mural is located in a university zone area. All 4 of the properties that face the mural on North 5th Street are rental properties, development properties. They are not family-owned. The general public did not have access to the revised mural code, city code. And number 4, there is a misunderstanding of information that is circulating. In conclusion, please allow this mural in its current state and hopefully finished state to be completed while there is still time for it to be completed and protected before we have inclement weather. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Knight. I think we've got inclement weather coming in right now. Any further comments, Ms. Lundmark?
That's all I have for this evening.
All right, item 9, city administrator comments. Mr. Phelan, any comments this evening?
Yeah, 2 items, Mayor Buczynski and members of the City Council. If you can join, there's a joint City Council meeting with your colleagues in East Grand Forks. I think it's supposed to start at 11:30. MPO is providing lunch if you want to come for lunch, and the meeting's supposed to start at 11:45. Council members Berg and Lunsky, you're on the group, so they're the Safe Streets for All, so that's going to be the major presentation, and then we'll give a quick update on the wastewater interconnect and Red River Valley Water Supply. That kind of demonstrates how we're working with our East Grand Forks colleagues. So if you can be there, that'd be great. We'll be at the Hive in the boardroom for that meeting, so thanks for that. Councilmember Berg also asked, we did cancel the joint meeting with the Alaris Center Commission or Event Center Commission, so we're not going to have that, but you'll see that later in the budget. And then I just want to highlight, we're going to have the July 21st will be an active and busy meeting where Maureen will be there to, with her colleagues to help present the city budget on behalf of the mayor too. So that'll be on the 21st. So a lot of things coming down the road here in July and August. And we'll also have the Ultra Sports Complex at that 21st for some additional decisions. So thank you all.
Thank you, Mr. Phelan. Item number 10, mayor and council member comments. Ms. Osowski, any comments this evening?
Yeah, I have a question. Do you know if Agristo has purchased that land yet?
Councilmember Osowski, we were just talking that today we're going to get an update from them.
Okay.
They did intend to have a letter of intent, And then they were talking about a closing in September, but we'll follow up. And the reason why we're going to follow up is that Mr. Gostad and Lisa Botten and others, we've been working on the development agreement. You may see the development agreement as soon as next Monday at the COW. And that's one of the questions we had for them, because we wanted to get that wrapped up in this July, August time period too. So more updates to come on that.
Okay, thank you. Is there any update on Epitome by any chance?
Councilmember Osowski, there was a good newspaper article.
I guess I don't subscribe to the Herald.
I know, but if you read it, here's what as I recall from the article, that Mr. Egan was quoted as still trying to develop his financing.
Okay.
He feels confident, and hopefully we'll have good news later this summer, fall, is kind of what the summary of the article was.
Okay. One more question I have is Epic. Can we use our sales tax fund to finish that? It looks, this center portion looks pretty garbagey. It doesn't look like anybody is maintaining that property at all. There's overgrown grass on a dead stage. It looks pretty bad, and it is off one of our major roads. I mean, the money thing was just a thought because we were discussing what maybe we could use our other sales tax money for, but I would like an update on that. I would like to know kind of where we plan on going. The last I asked about it, I heard that they were going to come up and re-ask for the pilot because pilots are not transferable. And so I thought that we would get to that point soon, but it just is sitting there unfinished and it is overgrown. It looks like garbage. So I'm just kind of wondering what our plans are with that.
Councilmember Osowski, good timing. There has been some activity, and Mr. Gossett and I have met with the developers, and they are working a way forward. And Mr. Gossett, could you give us an update?
Yes. No, we can't use our sales tax dollars to improve somebody else's property. We don't own that land.
But we would after it was finished, correct? That was
We currently
the
have no
agreement.
ownership
Okay,
interest
okay.
in it at this point.
Okay.
Second, there has been discussions, as Mr. Freeland mentioned, with the developers. I'm also having a discussion with the developer's attorney tomorrow morning to discuss this moving forward. So that's being planned, and hopefully we'll have an update on where things lie, at least some planning as to what they're intending to do at next week's meeting.
Okay, thank you. I guess my only comment is then on all of that is I think we should look at the city code. I know that I don't believe the mowing ordinance or anything covers construction areas, and there's been, including Epic, there's been some properties and construction areas where they do let them get overgrown and leave them kind of trashy for a while. So, I mean, I would appreciate if they'd go out there and clean up their property a little bit, or maybe if we could look at that city code regarding construction zones versus, private. So, thank you.
Councilmember Osowski, I'll follow up with Mr. Tweeten, who
Okay,
I think
thank
is now
you.
the owner, and see if he can please up that area around the stage.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you. Ms. Berg, any comments this evening?
Yes, I just wanted to share that Northland Rescue Mission is doing a fundraiser this Saturday from 8 to 12 at Love in Action. They're doing a community breakfast, and so I want to encourage people to go to that. And then I do have a question regarding the mural design and et cetera. Can we get a quick update on what the next steps are for that so that maybe there's some clarification on what's happening?
Mr. Brooks.
Sure. Mayor, Councilmember Berg, we are currently on the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting for this Wednesday. What's being requested is a mural in a residential district, which is what code requires. Any residential district requesting a mural requires city council approval with planning and zoning having a recommendation. So we've, once we received word about the mural going up, we did put it in for a public hearing. We were still able to meet the public hearing requirement deadline for the July 9th meeting. We just got that in. And so that's why it's going to be right now scheduled July 9th. Planning and zoning will be taking action and then providing a recommendation to you on July 21st.
Awesome. So we'll see it back here on July 21?
Correct.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Ms. Lunsky, any comments? Mr. Friedhoff?
Couple things. To go into both those groundbreakings was awesome. To see just how big the aquatic center is going to be and just how many people showed up to both the Cirrus and the aquatic center groundbreaking was phenomenal. So a lot of fun to be a part of that. And then I want to publicly thank Ryan Brooks. I have such calm months and then 4 or 5 phone calls all at once, and you and the staff have handled everything quicker than I could ever imagine. By the end of the day, everything was resolved. And so I appreciate it, and thank you to everyone in the team. So.
Thank you, Mr. Friedhoff. Mr. Veen?
A couple questions or a couple of thoughts here. I was just wondering, I know in the Grand Forks Herald, they recently talked about the structural deficiencies for bridges in the county, and they recognized the Kennedy Bridge. I was under the impression that after we did the last major improvement about, 5 years ago, that deficiency was corrected. Does anybody have any new information?
Councilmember Veen, Council President Sandy asked the same question over the weekend after all the efforts that we've gone through. So I'm not sure if Al has any further information, but maybe he could come up and share what we know and why we're in the top 5 with 2 bridges that were just completed on the rehab.
Short action is we haven't had a chance to go through and research all of that yet. I had some speculations, but I'd rather not do them publicly. I think they're old structures, and so they carry some old baggage with them that don't meet current standards is I think what's going on with a lot of that. And it's not unusual on structures that you're going to see geometric and other deficiencies that show up on these reports. And I think that's what's driving some of this stuff, but they're not, I don't think there's anything new or unusual about them. Unfortunately, some of the techniques you'd have to utilize to bring something up to current standard would pretty much require it to be reconstructed. So I think the DOT, these are both DOT, North Dakota DOT bridges. I want to make that clear also. So the DOT is making the decisions and the funding and follow up on those. So we can get you an update, even a memo here over the course of the week, kind of what was driving those comments on the bridges.
Yeah, well, I'd appreciate that, because I know that there was scouring under some of the abutments on the Kennedy Bridge, but I believe that was all fixed last time. So I was just wondering what that might be in your explanation. I appreciate.
Yep, and scouring would be part of that overall picture that I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm. Another different item then was, I thought, again, in the paper, they recognized the city water department for the drinking water continuing to meet the federal standards. And I think the fact that we have the new water treatment plant up and running and doing so well should be recognized. And the last thing I wanted to do is just say a thank you to Chief Lorenz for all the work that he's been doing here for the last, 7 years. So thanks much.
All right, thank you, Mr. Veen. Vice President Weigel?
I would just echo what Mr. Veen said about Chief Lorenz. We typically see Chief Lorenz just as the fire chief, but I know he's done a lot with our dispatch center. He has a wealth of knowledge when it comes to the radios and implementing the new radios, the new network, and everything that goes with that. And so we were lucky to get him at the time that we did, and I think our fire department's in a really good place moving forward.
Thank you, Mr. Weigel. President Sandy?
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Gusted, are you planning on attending Wednesday's Planning and Zoning Commission meeting in case the commission has any questions regarding our ordinance related to murals and your opinion?
Given that comment, yes, I will be there.
Well, if not
Yes.
you, I think someone from your office certainly should be, because there will be questions related to the legality, and we certainly don't want people thinking we're censoring content, because I think that couldn't be further from the truth in this situation. Thank you, Mr. Gusted. Mr. Bosflug, a quick question for you regarding signs. signage. And if Mr. Brooks wants to jump in, that's fine. When someone builds an apartment building, quite often when it's under construction, they'll construct a big 4x8 sign and set that sign out in front, and it'll say, "For rent, contact so-and-so." How many years after the building has been full are they required to take those signs down? Or decades? How many decades is it?
Mayor, President Sandy, members of council, we usually try to get them down right away. I'm guessing you're going someplace where we have a few that we've tried to get down.
They're all over.
They're still
They're all
up,
over
but,
town.
Yeah, we can work harder, but as soon as the buildings are finished, typically, we'll ask them to take them down. It doesn't always work that way. I mean, we push for it. Some of them will take it down. A lot of them just kind of sit on it. We do have a method of taking that to Gostad's office. And
They're all,
then going to the courts.
everyone's guilty. There isn't any one person or one company. They're all guilty, but they're all over the place.
But with that comment, we'll send a crew out and identify them.
For that matter, how long can someone a real estate company, for example, that has a trailer that's, let's call it 24 feet long, that has both sides painted or wrapped, how long can that sit, for example, on 42nd Street in a vacant lot, right up by 42nd Street? As if it's a big billboard. How long can that sit there?
I'll defer to Mr. Brooks, but I would say not very long. What we try to do
But
is
that's
we try
not
to
the
get 'em-
case, right? I'm sorry, I keep interrupting you.
No,
For sarcasm purposes.
that's
I'm
okay,
copying the
because-
mayor's sarcasm from earlier.
I mean, if we do have them out there, we'll follow up. I mean, we don't know what we don't know. So if they're out and about, we have staff members that will follow up and we'll get them out of there. Because they shouldn't be just sitting on a vacant lot. I mean,
I mean, if it's in
advertising,
their
that's
own
not supposed to
parking
be
lot,
done.
I can see that,
Absolutely.
right? I mean, I can get that, but, and so, sorry, thank you. And I think you guys are doing a good job. There's only so much time and space and money and people. So I appreciate Mr. Bozeman.
We will follow
Thank you.
up and we'll do our best to get them down.
I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I have to apologize. I can't make the joint meeting tomorrow. On the short notice, I've got a doctor's appointment that I'll be out of town. So either way, I hope though the few people, it sounds like there are a couple others that can't make it tomorrow as well. So hopefully those that can make it represent us well. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. We'll pass along your message. You're still in favor of the intercity bridge. Is that true?
Let everyone know.
All right. I just want to wrap up, just thank everyone for being here. Obviously, there's construction going on, and everybody found a way to get here, so appreciate that, appreciate the comments. Nice work, council. With that, we'll look for a motion to adjourn.
Move adjournment.
Adjourn,
Second.
motion second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.